Litter in a public place is unsightly, dangerous to animals, and an offense. The maximum fine for leaving litter is £2,500, but in many cases offenders will be given the option of paying a fixed penalty of only £75. The council provide and maintain bins to try and prevent the depositing of litter in public places and arrange for the bins to be emptied on a regular basis.
However, several areas in Jesmond have been affected in this sense, with popular streets gathering significant amounts of litter. Seeing as the situation is worsening, residents have taken it upon themselves to keep their area clean and organize a day for litter picking in Jesmond, a favorite jogging and recreational spot for many. In addition, a national campaign called The Big Tidy Up was also brought to Jesmond last year with great results, although its focus was yet again Jesmond. However, some local councillors have taken active steps to reduce the litter on the busy streets of the area as well.
The state of the streets and unmaintained pavements is also a talking point, and potholes such as the ones on Estelle Terrace and Forsyth Road are an example of something that has become a national concern. At least 40,000 drivers claimed compensation from councils for damage caused by potholes last year, which resulted in Prime Minister David Cameron's decision of giving local authorities an additional £140 million to help repair roads following one of the wettest winters on record. Given this news, Jesmond residents might expect improvements in this regard during the next term. Traffic is another problem that some Jesmond residents have complained about. The traffic on the narrow but busy streets has not only been a cause of annoyance, but also raised road safety concerns. Figures from the Office of National Statistics on car ownership and usage showed that in Newcastle there is an average of 1 car per household, with 42% of residents not owning a vehicle, 39% owning one, and 16% of residents owning 2 cars per household.
We've spoken to residents of Jesmond throughout the year about various environmental issues, and this is what they had to say.
What do you think the next councillor needs to improve in Jesmond?
Litter. Glass broken everywhere and litter.
No, maybe like more recycling bins and things like that, maybe.
Transport, I think, is fine. Transport is fine. Litter is not great. Parking's not great.
There's an awful lot that needs improving as far as rubbish collections. Bin collections, back lanes, rubbish everywhere.
Not a great lot. I'm quite happy with Jesmond.
The roads aren't great, but certainly the result of the bars on Osborne Road and the mess that results from that is the main issue.
But with the council having a limited budget, it might be unreasonable to expect every road and pavement to be in perfect condition, especially in the context of national spending cuts. Whether the council is doing an adequate job of keeping Jesmond's environment in good condition is something for the residents to decide in this week's elections.
So I'm going to start with an easy one. And how would you deal with potholes and damaged pavements in Jesmond? Okay, how would you deal with potholes and damaged pavements in Jesmond? I'm going to start, I think, with Tony. Would you mind beginning with that one? How would you deal with potholes and damaged pavements if you were elected?
Yeah, Tony? I think this is a tricky one, because basically these are issues that have to be dealt with, and obviously we're in a time of austerity and cuts, and so the council has to decide where it's going to choose to spend its money. I don't think there's really much doubt that it has to look to the surfaces that people walk on and use first before pretty well anything else. So basically I think they have to be done, and it's very difficult to see communities managing to do them themselves. So I think it's back to really how the council prioritises its work. Obviously, even with less cars, you're still going to have problems with road holes. They have to be done.
Well, we'll come this way. Duncan, would you like to answer that one next? Is that a priority for you?
It is a priority. I mean, I think they need to be repaired. It's the short answer. The council will probably find themselves liable if there were accidents caused by potholes and pavements. A side issue, now I walk around Jesmond, I see double yellow lines that are unenforceable because they're broken. I see give way signs that have worn off through wear and tear. I mean, the other week I was speaking to someone who was an accident at the base of Larkspur Terrace and Mistletoe Road. The council will be liable. So I mean, for my mind, it's a very important point. I don't see them being maintained. I was outside Lily Crescent, the trees were growing across, moss was on the pavement, and I slipped the other day. So I think it is an important point, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed immediately.
Okay, thank you. Will?
Yeah, well, I wonder if the current councillors could explain why, in this current council's deficit reduction plan, you've cut the road budget. And this is, all the while, £7.3 million is raised in parking fines city council wide. This is ridiculous. You're picking up the tab in your fines, in your council tax, with your parking permits, and then cut the one thing where those taxes are supposed to go, which is repairing the holes in the road. I mean, this is silly, and this is what I mean when I say this council is politicising the cuts. This council pays around £30 million in debt interest a year. This is the amount they claim they have to save every year from their annual budget. What I'm saying is, let's spend the money more wisely, let's repair the holes, and we want to give you that opportunity to vote UKIP this week.
Okay, thank you, Will. Tom?
Well, it's nice to know that we don't live in a claims culture. As I understand it, there's two levels to this question. One is the council still has the duty under the Highways Act to maintain safe roads, and as I understand it, that is because of people making claims, some of them justified ones, some of them not so justified ones. That position is still maintained, that they will do inspections, and that other authorities are struggling to do even that basic amount. What is slightly more difficult to take is the wider roads and maintenance budget, because the way in which that is divvied up between wards isn't actually based on the needs of the roads. It's based on the needs, or it's in part the needs of the people in other wards. Deprivation, not need.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Catherine?
Yes, I think it's unfortunate that the budget allocation for roads and pavements was cut. I think it needn't necessarily have happened that way, because in our alternative budget we suggested other means of saving money, but at the same time maintaining funding for roads and pavements. At the moment, obviously, if there's a problem with a pavement or with some potholes, and I just got some repaired last week in a back lane, because they were when Highways inspected them, they were at a level where they had to be done. But it would be preferable to have the money increased funding available, and Jesmond doesn't get a fair share of the allocation of road and pavement funding.
Okay, thank you.
And also, if
we can maybe come back to that in a second, Catherine. Arlene?
Yeah, I mean, we have to acknowledge that it's a problem, and it's actually a problem nationally. Certainly in South Jesmond, or in Jesmond as a whole, I think, you know, we have a duty to maintain the roads and a duty to maintain the footpaths. But the cuts were made in order to protect essential services, to protect vulnerable people. But going along that line, I'd say that we should prioritise areas for repair where they're near sheltered accommodation, protect older people and older people's residences to minimise the trips and falls that maybe may happen because of uneven footpaths. But there has been a recent announcement of additional funding, and I hope there's a fair funding system and Newcastle actually gets some money from central government. And if they do, I will certainly work with Councillors Hardman and Mendelssohn to make sure that Jesmond gets a fair share of that funding.
Peter?
Yes, what I would say is, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't borrow money like was done before by the previous administration, which we now have to pay interest on, and the council having to dispose of capital assets in order to fund extra road repairs. I mean, you have to acknowledge that these road repairs, the cuts in the budget, are because of national government policy, and short of a change of government policy, or hopefully, obviously, from my point of view, change of government, there's not a great deal we can do with it. Money that's raised from parking fines and things like that has to pay for the enforcement process itself. The point about parking fines is that you're trying to stop people from doing certain things, right? It's not there as a money-raising, revenue-raising process, despite what people might think, that the people who go round putting the tickets on your cars have to be paid. So I would say, you know, hopefully, as Arlene said, we just have to hope that we get a fair share of the funding the government's announced.
Okay, thank you, candidates. I'm going to give each party a further 1 minute, if you want it. Anyone want to take a further 1 minute to clarify or respond to anything they've heard? Will?
Okay, let's put this into context. £4 million will be spent redesigning the roundabout on the Great North Road. Now, this is all in the name of helping cyclists. I can think of quite a few ways to make that roundabout safe for cyclists. I don't think it takes £4 million. You haven't heard any answers here about how they're going to fund the repair of potholes. You've got a Labour councillor, or a Labour candidate, who's saying the previous administration has run huge debts.
Hang on, you did. I said the statutory duty will be funded and will happen. Now, if you didn't hear that, that's not my problem.
So what statutory duty will be funded?
The statutory duty that under the Highways Act that the council has for safe highways, which is what the claims are brought under, will be funded. That is
so
council
you're waiting
policy.
for claims before you repair them?
No, I didn't say that at all.
Well,
You're misconstruing what I'm saying.
I've been in Newcastle for 5 years, and it really has to be one of the worst cities for potholes. And I haven't heard anything.
Well, my sister lives in Sheffield. She's got far worse potholes around Newcastle.
Tony, for the Greens.
Yeah. I think we've got to look long term on this as well. And the bit of the road that upsets me most for potholes as a cyclist, it's really dangerous, is the junction of Burden Terrace and Tankerville. This and many others are particularly the places where there are school runs, and there's very heavy traffic at certain times of day. So I think we've got to repair it now, but we've got to look to the time when these areas there's not so much traffic, and cut the school runs. I can tell you about that later.
Okay. Right. Well, audience, you've heard from every candidate, you've heard from every party. Have you got a question you'd like to... Yes.
Oh, Mr. Green Party, the cyclist man. I happen to live in Dowling Park, amongst all the schools and all the cars, and the cyclists seem to think that they have a God-given right to ride on the pavement. Now, you know, is this a fact? Has the law changed?
I think the position is that everybody who breaks the law should be caught up on it. The risk of drivers who break the law is far greater. So I think we should really look at the people who are most likely to cause accidents and death and make sure they don't. I'm not standing up for cyclists who cycle on pavements.
And we will be discussing cycling in another question, certainly, but...
Well, I can't understand how cyclists can't read signs. You know, I was in Northumberland Street this morning, and it says, no cycling. But there was a cyclist, and there was a policeman standing there.
Okay, well, as I said, we will return to cycling. Don't worry.
I think it's worth saying that's not confined to cyclists. There are plenty of people who can't read signs.
Anything more
Most
specific?
of these are students that are supposed to be well educated.
Anything specific about potholes and pavements? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Chris Chersey. I think it's very rich for the a representative of the United Kingdom Isolationist Party to actually talk about health and safety on the roads. I think it's very laudable. You're a medical student. I think that's very laudable indeed. But as a medical student, you should be, as a potential doctor, you should be very concerned about health and safety on the roads. And I think the general public should know that in the European Union Parliament, when a law was put on the table for larger windscreens and larger windows in public service vehicles, the United Kingdom Isolationist Party actually, out of dogma, actually voted against that, which engendered which endangers and compromises the health and safety of pedestrians and other road users. So I think it's very rich for somebody from the United Kingdom Isolationist Party to talk about health and safety on the roads when in the European Union,
you got a question?
Yeah. Yes. You want to calm down? No, that's okay. But somebody in the United European Isolation Party in the European Parliament actually votes against something which is in the interest of human health and safety.
Thank you.
Doctor,
Thank
where
you.
do you stand on that? Hang your head in shame.
Calm down.
It's got anything to do with potholes, because he's in favour of potholes, but he votes against it.
Calm down.
You can vote.
Well, I think we'll. Shall we allow the candidates? We'll allow the candidates to respond. Will, did you want to respond to that?
I don't see what that really has to do with potholes.